Hello, hello. Welcome to the PG-ish podcast. I'm Erin, a corporate marketing manager by day, podcast host by night, and single mom to 2 young daughters 24/7. In short, PG-ish parenting is the cliff notes to personal growth as a parent. Since those kiddos are always watching and learning from the adults in their life, like you, PG-ish is parenting guidance-ish to support a life worthy of imitating. We believe that when parents are whole and healthy, they are better equipped to raise happy, healthy, and successful children while navigating the challenges of parenthood with more grace, joy, and fun. Welcome and enjoy. Now, we all know that there's no such thing as a perfect parent, perfect child, or perfect human. Yet, when so many of us began our wild journey as a parent, we fell into the trap of believing we needed to be perfect and never fail. You know, to be that perfect parent raising the perfect kid. Brittney Serpell, an expert in helping parents create strong, positive relationships with their children, and the author of Imperfect Parenting, joins me today to share what she believes is the true goal of parenting. I so appreciate Brittney's authenticity as she shares the pivotal moments, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I mean, don't we all have our mom Hulk moments that we just cringe when we think about them? And yet, through it all, she'll give you insight into what works, what doesn't, and how to create better systems and boundaries that produce the family culture you've longed for. Check it out. Well, Brittney, I'm excited to have you on PG-ish today. I have been following you for a couple years. Don't want to be a stalker, but I've totally followed you. And it wasn't until this spring, I guess it was, when I went to a conference that you were at. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of hit of like, oh, I don't know why I haven't thought about having you on the show. So here you are.
Here I am. I'm so excited to be here.
Good. Yeah. And I know it's been a busy couple months for both of us. So yeah, again, just thank you for the time today. But I think just to jump right in, I mean, that's motherhood, parenting in a nutshell, right? Like it ebbs and flows, but there's always something and it's never not hectic.
Right. When it involves other humans, it's always going to be super busy.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Again, just to dive right in, I think that, you know, as moms, we have this idea that like, we're going to do things a certain way. And then you have your kids and you're like, I wasn't prepared for any of this. So why is it important to have values or a plan to fall back on, knowing, even though we kind of want to not remember this, but like things are going to go awry and we can only control ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I learned it quite as well in my first child, but I think that's what they call it, practice child number one.
Yeah.
Where my friend Becky calls it the first pancake. You know, it's totally edible. It's totally serves all the same purpose, but it doesn't look as pretty. I think those are the lessons where you just kind of learned like, oh, I tried to control that. I tried to manage that. And, you know, you could keep trying to do that and fail, or you can lean into the messy, the unpredictable, and you go, okay, what can I control? I can control how I showed up today with my kids. I can control if I'm nice today. I can control if I utilize their nap time to something productive, or I live in shame because all I did was sit on Instagram for that hour. Like, what do I need? Okay, I need to get laundry done, or I need to take a nap, or I need that hour of TV and just nothing. It's learning for what you need. I think that's the biggest thing, is that you got to just lean into learning, what do I need to be a successful parent, and what do I actually control as a parent? I think that's a lot of the times we lose the idea of what we actually control. Mm-hmm. You know, I say permission, opportunity, and resources is really all I control as a parent. And when I try and control your mouth or your actions or your attitude, I'm going to lose. Mm-hmm. But I can control those about myself. Will I do it?
Yeah. And there's always opportunity, right, to practice that. And many times I know I get it wrong, even though I think I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, we all get it wrong. And it's the beauty of forgiving yourself and not living in the shame of you got it wrong today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is a new day. And that's probably one of my favorite things I've learned about my kids is if I practice forgiveness with them, they practice forgiveness with me. And so if I'm gracious to them as they learn and make mistakes, they'll be gracious to me as I make mistakes, because we're both growing.
Yeah.
And then that's the goal, is that as a parent, you keep growing, because you're going to keep leading them and they keep, so you got to keep growing.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely something that I tell myself too, it's like, this is a process and we're both evolving. And I can't give that what I don't have, but also like, I need to up my game a little bit just because like I need to be one step ahead of them so that I can actually teach them, which isn't always easy.
Yeah. We've told our daughter, especially our oldest, we've never parented a 16-year-old. We've never parented. So she's now 18 and she's moved out. So we're like, we've never parented an adult child before. So bear with us as we may make mistakes.
For sure. Yeah. There's too many stories I could tell about that. And I think that there's tension in that too, right? Because you want to get it right. And I think that's what's so great about your book, Imperfect Parenting. It's like, even though we know that we're imperfect beings, we want to show up and do it right the first time. And that can be really frustrating. So how do we kind of lean into kind of that plan? Like how does your family set up the plan of action or those values so that you know that you are grounded in something and not just like aimlessly
wandering?
Yeah.
We created something called a culture creed. I can't even tell you when it was. It probably was 2016, maybe. And Lincoln was about 5 and Delaney was somewhere around 11. And it just kind of marked a lot of the direction because beforehand, we go to church and we have these values, Christian values that everybody has. And, we definitely leaned heavy on kids' church for teaching our kids, those things that we want to see replicated in their family, and we don't lie. And there's just things that you do, but until we put it to words and until we invited the kids to actually partner with us in it, I don't know that we were walking it out fully successful. I would say we're still not fully successful because we're all human,
right?
But we've improved in our accuracy as far as hitting the target. Yeah. Because we now all have this shared goal as to what we're trying to accomplish. It's not just two adult parents trying to influence our kids to do these things. It's now a family unit that says, this is who we are.
Yeah.
And so when we created the culture creed that I talk about in my book, it just helped us have this physical representation of who we are and what we're going to practice. And, it was statements like, our passion is helping and loving other people and having fun. And those are really great words and anyone could say them. But when we created it, we had a huge discussion around it. And we've continued to have discussions around it. And so it's not like I always tell parents that if you talk to your kids about sex, you can't have one conversation and hope that it sticks.
Right.
It's the same thing with family values. You can't have one conversation and hope that it sticks because they're changing. So when we did this when Lincoln was 5, he was obsessed with Legos. And the biggest worry he ever had in the world was, that he lost his Spider-Man Lego.
Right.
Where now he's a black belt in Taekwondo and he's fighting the urge to quit because it's hard. And, we're teaching him how to be resilient. Yeah. So that family culture creed that we created, it's morphed and grown with him, but we get to keep pointing back to it in different ways.
Yeah.
Like we try our best. That's one of the lines in it. And so trying our best at 5 is cleaning your room well.
Yeah.
Trying our best at 11 is you're going to get up off the mat again and you're going to do it again. You're going to keep showing up even though you don't want to because it builds something in you. I think when you invite your kids into creating values for your family, and a lot of them we have before they're able to communicate, right. And that's beautiful, and you should have that. But when they get to that stage where they actually can start participating and protecting them, it just changes the dynamic.
Yeah.
A new level of ownership comes. And I think that's where a lot of families have struggles, that they feel like they're dragging their kids into, this is who we are. Why don't you do this? You know better than this. You kind of have this nagging presence rather than, what does that mean to you when you read that statement on our wall?
Yeah.
It's just different ownership because their words are up there.
Yeah. I think that's key of just a partnership because it's not a parent trying to enforce the rules. It's no, we're a team and this is why we do it, as a family. And yeah, that ownership piece is good, which really leads me to your chapter. So I have my book in front of me and I've totally marked it up. But
I love that.
Yeah, your chapter on self-control and responsibility. I think that just you're speaking right into that. It's like we have to own our peace because we're not in control, and they're going to see the world from a different perspective than us. No matter how many times we say it, we can have these values, like you said, on the wall, but what are our actions and how are they lining up to that?
Yeah. Bill Johnson has a quote that says, rules without relationship equals rebellion.
Mm.
And I think part of to create a loving, connected home that has values, we have to be prioritizing our relationship. I think scared parents create the need to control, but then what is the relationship piece. And that level of influence is really our place of like, okay, if I'm super connected to your heart, I get a lot of influence to your decisions. And it's not out of manipulation, but it's out of like, this is going to really hurt our relationship if you decide to sneak out or lie to me about something. So just, it goes back to having ownership and taking action and people practicing that piece.
No, I agree. And I think just having that relationship, that connection provides that safe place so that you do have that open communication when it does get messy.
It gets so messy. If you just look, there's so much mess in there. I make messes, they make messes, everybody's making messes. It's not a mess-free life, parenting. That's the goal. Not perfection, but it is staying connected in it.
Yeah. I love connection. I think, quality time is definitely my top love language. And so that's why it resonates well with me of like, how can I connect better? And what does that look like? Especially when my kids are wildly different and their love language isn't quality time. So it's like, what does connection mean to them? And that's kind of fun to just dig into in and of itself, and a learning process.
Oh, absolutely. It is. I think connection, sometimes the world thinks that if connection is easy, that's how it's meant to be. But I think that connection actually it's the value of you being willing to work on something that isn't easy. And I mean, I've been married, it will be 20 years in October. Marriage is not easy, but I have so much enjoyment out of my relationship with Ben. He's my closest friend. We just enjoy each other. And we have had heartache after heartache and all the things, but we keep choosing this place of connection, which really our marriage is so well established. I think our family culture has just benefited from that. As our kids see the willingness that we're able to put in for that level of connection. Yeah. They're almost expecting that same level of commitment when it comes to connection towards them. And, it's so much work, but that it's so rewarding to know that I have given everything every single time when you put something really hard in front of my face. Yeah. No, that's good, because I think a lot of people are conflict aversion, like they don't know, either they weren't raised in a home like that. And I know I have some of those tendencies, which parenting has just whipped me like into shape of like, oh no, we have to forgive. We need to repair. We need to like do all these things. We need to talk about it, not shove it under the rug like my parents demonstrated. Totally. And that's the, generation we live on is convenience is so loud in everything. We've got social media. I'm not on there a ton. I mean, I look like I'm on there, but I definitely try not to be on there because I don't love it as much as some other people, and that's fine. But I think that, the reality of how do I utilize this? Because it's not going away. It's definitely not going away. And I have to be willing to like, okay, how do I connect to people on a deeper level without this convenience factor? How do I, stay? Because again, all of the relationships that are forming on social media are so quick and surface level, all these things. So how do you have a high priority for connection and intimacy when convenience is so loud and everywhere, especially for our kids now more than ever? Yeah. I mean, that's something that like, I don't know how to navigate, right, of the social media with them, because I didn't grow up with it. It's like the internet. I was like 13 or something when the internet, I had my first computer, and I took like how to use the internet class in high school. It's like, they don't know a world like that. And how do you bring them back to being connected? And really wanting to be connected, and even have those tools. I think with my oldest daughter, she's definitely the more extroverted one, and she wears her heart on her sleeve. And so I always know what's happening. And we get into it a lot because
we just have different personalities, but it's like, we know that at the end of the day, like I have her back and she can always come to me, even if it's like an hour later, she's like, I'm sorry, and I can do the same thing. And that's just really beautiful and a very unexpected thing that I have in my relationship with her.
And what I love you just said is that we are so different, but we figured out that connection is always the priority, regardless of how different we will always be.
Mm-hmm.
Because your differences aren't going to change. I mean, you might grow in is that she'll get married and have kids someday and you'll be able to relate on that level.
Yeah.
But how she parents them will probably be different than you. And how her interactions with her husband probably will be different than even you have yours. And so that need to want to still correct or change, it has to stay quiet because that's not the goal. It's not to change you, but to enjoy who you are and look for how do I connect with you and deepen this relationship.
Yeah.
I want to influence you. I want to have access to your heart. And that's what we have to keep on the surface when we're parenting. And especially these kids are so different than us. That's me. Delaney's my one that's so different than me. And, we take all the personality tests at our house and her and I are opposite in just about everything. She's like, we are so opposite. So I have to work to know her, to connect with her, to see her, to value these things that I look at and they actually feel wrong to me. Like, I don't know where to put that because this is like my weakest moment is what you look like and you're thriving. I'm like, you have value for that and not be terrified. And then we have to encourage you to live and thrive in that where it scares me, the territory that you walk in.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but all three of my kids came out different.
Well, I only have two and they're like night and day. Yeah.
There's no owner's manual. Somehow we forgot that when we left the hospital.
Right. I know. If only there was a manual to adulting because that would be nice.
So true.
But I know you've done a lot of counseling and this just popped into my head, but like, have you noticed that people just don't want to put in the work like we mentioned because it's too messy? Because I know, I mean, that's just part of life, but I think like people are they want to avoid it and go that superficial route.
I think that people they don't want to do the work because they just want to control it. So if I can bring fear and punishment into my parenting, then I can control it. You're right. Those things work. So you can't do that. But the other side of the coaching that I do with families is I have a lot of parents whose children won't speak to them anymore because they grew up in a home that was filled with control and punishment.
Yeah.
So instead of having a home where they matured and they moved out and they're like, oh, I still want you in my life as this consultant role that I get to have access to this resource. They go, no, I'm finally free from prison.
Yeah.
And so that's a dynamic that I have a lot of now, especially since we've moved into like kind of mental health and we have language. I think we throw the word narcissist out there too much, but I get the tendencies in which people experience, which was old way of parenting is control, punishment, do what I say, you do it now, not a language of empowerment or hearing what it is that you need or making a space for the emotions. I don't think the emotions need to rule the house. I think they need to have a healthy space, because you want to train your kids how to operate society. But the hard part is we don't want to do the work because we want the instant now result, which means if I get scary, if I become the scary mommy, because that's me on my worst day.
Me too.
Mommy Hulk comes out and she's barking out orders and all the little village people run, that's what happens. But what I do is I teach them that I am not a safe place. And so the room gets cleaned up, the dishes get done. And then when the She-Hulk, Mommy Hulk turns back into the normal human and I go in to reconnect, everyone's afraid. They don't know if she's going to come out again. Yeah. And so if I set that as the normal, I bet my kids probably can't wait to be away from me.
Oh, yeah.
It's so unpredictable.
Right.
So that's the heartbreaking thing about when, I get into a session and we discover like, oh, you just want obedience and compliance. You don't want an intimate, loving relationship. Or they do want that, but they just are too afraid to give up the obedience and compliance and really turning on yourself of, I'm going to manage me. and I'm going to do the extra work. Like everybody wants the pill that's going to make you thin. I mean, I would love it. I don't want to do the gym work.
No.
I don't want to knock out the sweets. I don't want to let go of my wine. I don't want to do any of those things.
Yeah.
But the longevity of actual success is I've got to be willing to do the work. And I think that goes just the same in any relationship, whether it's parenting or marriage.
Yeah, no doubt. I know you have some good stories in your book. There was one, you don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but with you in the car and Ben saying, I love that story. It's like, oh, I could be in those shoes too. Yeah.
The flying chicken nugget.
Yeah.
Basically, the story is my kids are being really disrespectful and throwing things and fighting, and it's chaos, and I don't want to be in it.
Yeah.
And so normal She-Hulk mommy is going to start barking out commands and orders and swatting anything that I can reach from the front seat, or just threats, which are, you're going to get a spanking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to make me pull over this car. But in reality, I'm like, oh, I have full opportunity and permission in this moment to remove myself from the situation and help my children practice managing themselves, because they're the ones that are out of control. As soon as I get out of control, then I've got a mess to clean up.
Yeah.
So my husband and I were in the car. We were driving home from this meeting one night, and I said, you need to stop for gas. And we pull over to this gas station. And I said, everybody that's fun to be around gets an ice cream. And there was only two of us, Ben and I. We're the only fun people in that car.
Yeah.
So I went and got an ice cream for the two of us, and I ate it on the front of the hood of the car, just looking at my kids. And they were in complete disbelief that I would ever do something so cruel. But I'm like, I got to take really good care of me, because otherwise I make a mess with my kids because I lost control of me.
Right.
You know, the beauty of the story is that we were only there really filling up gas and eating an ice cream, and then we left because they got it under control. And I've only had to do that one time. I wish I could have more ice creams to myself.
Right.
And the beauty that I loved in that moment was I didn't make a huge mess that I had mom shame about, and I had all this guilt of how I talked to my kids or I treated them. And then I didn't have to act like justifying my behavior because I'm the adult.
Right.
I managed my half of the relationship, and I gave them a beautiful opportunity to manage theirs.
Yeah.
I did.
And that's so good, because I think that there's so much shame, mom shame in particular right now of, oh, I yelled at my kids. Like, what am I going to do? And it's like, okay, emotions are real, but how are you going to own them? And how is you going to turn that into a training opportunity and really just take responsibility for yourself? Because that's all we can do.
I think the hard part about mom guilt or mom shame is when I partner with that, it leads my next decision, which then leads my next decision, which it's just a cycle, because then I get frustrated because I've overcompensated with my boundaries or correction because I felt bad because I did such a hard line or disrespectful line. And then I end up repeating it again. That's how this works, is I gave into the anger or the manipulation or whatever it is that you struggle with. And then you overcompensate by not having any boundaries. You give in, give all these yeses away that ultimately then frustrate you with their lack of gratitude or disrespect.
Yeah.
And then here comes it again. I mean, I remember many opportunities to partner with it. And the best advice I have there is to call it what it is, clean up your mess, and then move on.
Yeah.
Because that's the secret sauce to not repeating the cycle, is that you've got to clean up your mess and move on.
And I think taking that break for yourself too, that you also talk about, to take care of yourself. It's like self-care isn't, going to get a mani-pedi. It's taking care of your heart and your emotions in that moment and being able to step away before it gets really bad, because that's your piece of the relationship. And I mean, it's funny because so I serve in Game Changers at church, and just all the tools that we teach, they're so simple, yet I find myself repeating them to myself all the time, like just stop and think and pray, and I'm like, I can do that.
This works for adults too.
Yeah. I mean, and the opportunities are ripe, almost every day. I mean, just as last week, I had this big expectation in my head of how things were going to go down, and it didn't. And I felt a lot of guilt of like, oh, I had this big thing planned for my daughter, and now it's not going to happen. And I'm tired, which for me, like fatigue is where like the mom Hulk comes out because I'm just so like grumpy and I'm just like, I just want to sleep. So I know that about myself, but all the variables were at play and against me. And I definitely like let myself get that like ragey. And then I was like, I can stop and I can stop this because I'm oozing out over my daughter and the people around me for what? Because I can't control the situation. I can only come back to myself. And I was okay with that and came back to it. And my daughter was lovely. She gave me a hug and she's like, Mommy, it's okay. And I was like, it is. And we moved on. I was like, okay.
I love children for their ability to forgive us.
Yeah.
And grace. I mean, the Lord says, come to me like the children, that's coming to him childlike is that place of, I don't know a kid that doesn't think they're awesome. I don't know that kid that doesn't think that their father just loves them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a kid that doesn't like, you know what? It's okay that you were mean. Let's try it again. I mean, children have this beautiful gift of this space of checking with their heart and cleaning out the junk and then moving forward. So I think this is why the Lord's like, let the children come. Because you know what? We don't have to do all the stuff with them because they're just already there. And then that's really what I think it's God's gift in another form to us as our kids present that to us going, yeah. I know you're a great mom. I know you love me. I know you're for me. It's okay.
Exactly. And we just get so wrapped up in our own minds sometimes. And
it's the perfection cycle. Yep. I did that wrong. I've scarred them for life. Now they'll be able to be successful because they're going to have so many issues and so-sos. And I'm like, you know what? They probably will have those.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jesus, for creating a path of cleaning up the mess that I made that I didn't clean up.
Right. I love their innocence. I don't know how long that lasts. Your kids are a little bit older than mine. So hopefully for a while.
I think that innocence stays as long as you protect it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
I would say that it looks different in different ways. It's probably not as innocent as the 3-year-olds, but the more and more we put on display, going to the Father, he's your source. I think the more they get to go and find those moments for longer.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I know we talked about this briefly before, but you just sent your daughter off to college. And I think there's times and places where like, we're just not ready for the emotions that come up. And I think, with school just starting, kids going off to school, college, wherever. And it's, how can you prepare yourself for those emotions if you can at all?
Well, I think knowing yourself, we sent Delaney off to school. We moved her to a new town and we dropped her off at her place where she's staying. And, we were driving home and regret wanted to come in and still this moment of victory. It's sad. It's like Ben keeps calling it wonderfully terrible, which it is. It's wonderful. This next season is wonderful. And it's terrible because we're going to miss her.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we let regret win, it robs us of getting to feel all of those feelings of, we were successful.
Yeah.
So I think knowing yourself. So if you're one that regret is a hook for you, then you're going to have to know that as soon as it comes in, if I'm not paying attention, I'm going to give it a place to take root.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm probably going to be robbed of them being away. I'm then going to be trying to play catch up when they're actually in a new season. So then I make it about me rather than about them.
Yeah.
Which is super toxic. And you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
This is their season. So let's say your kid's going to kindergarten for the first time, and they forget their lunchbox. Oh my gosh, I'm the worst mom in the world. You get a note from there's just a million little things that can show up. And I don't know that you can always prepare for those moments, but it's quick to forgive, quick to laugh at it. I think Bishop Joseph Garlington says, if it's funny now or it's funny later, it's funny now. And I have lived by that in so many ways.
Yeah.
Where we have farm animals at our house and I was trimming hooves to this goat and I'm with my kids out there and this goat starts peeing and he's splattering pee all over me.
Oh no.
And I could feel myself getting mad because it's just ruining everything. And one of my kids says, Mom, if it's funny later, it's funny now. And I thought, it's definitely going to be funny later, but it's not funny later.
Right.
So if you can remember those little moments, gosh, returning back to this place of joy is probably going to be the best place for you to be able to function and tackle that problem.
Mm-hmm.
So It's not funny when you get a note from the principal's office that your kids got detention because they wrote on the wall in a Sharpie. It's not funny right now, but it probably will be funny later. So let's try and giggle through the reality that this is going to be a great story. I think that question, what do I need? I ask all the time. What am I needing right now? Because I'm angry and I'm frustrated. I think a lot of times we don't admit to the embarrassed.
Yeah.
And if we admit to the embarrassed, then we can realize, oh, I'm trying to put this on as my own identity.
Mm-hmm.
That my child's behavior is somehow a reflection of me.
Mm-hmm.
They are their own individual person. I was not there when they put the Sharpie whatever on the wall. So, okay, what do we need to do? And I think it's just these little moments. If you're able to, stop and pray, it's kind of a stop and evaluate. What do I need? Okay, how am I feeling? Okay, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
If we gave ourselves time to respond instead of just react to things, we'd be a lot more successful and deal with a lot less shame and guilt.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think we bypass that a lot, whether it's like a subconscious reaction that we've just done on habit for so long, or we just take on like more of that fear and embarrassment and just don't take a minute. Yeah, it's funny. You reminded me of a couple of weeks ago, I sent my kids up to Sacramento on their first flight by themselves. And I had all those emotions, like, as I said, bye, like at the gate. I'm like, did I prepare them enough? Do they know that I love them? Do they know how to put their bag somewhere? Just like all those like feelings of like, oh no, like fear, regret, like all of it. And it's like, they're going to be fine. Like it's out of my hands. They're smart enough. It's all good. And just to let it go. Yeah, but that can be so hard. And I think you said another thing of just staying present, because I think so often we don't. There can be so much joy in the moment, yet we try to rush it. And I think it's important to just recognize like the blessings around you, even if it is hard, because it's a learning opportunity, if anything.
Ben and I have a podcast, Imperfect Parenting, every week that comes out. And my friend Seth Dahl's on it once a month. Ben and I do the rest of it. And I think we posted on social recently the question, what's your favorite season of parenting? And I answered with, I don't know that I could pick one season, because what happens when you look at one season, sure, I think I'm probably much better at parenting older kids than I was toddlers.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that that was my least favorite season. It was a different season. And I have really tried, and it was the best advice I ever got from my youth pastor at the time, because she had a little kid. I remember Candace Johnson. Still, I hear these words, but she says, the best parenting season should be the one that you're in right now.
Yeah, that's good.
Because otherwise you're searching for when joy is going to come rather than making sure joy is present.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I just try to remember is I will never get this season back.
Yeah.
Much as I don't know that I miss the smush graham crackers and fish, I do miss the wonder in which they look at everything. A caterpillar for the first time, a big giant aquarium, their eyes, they're just the imagination that's coming from it. You don't get that again when they're 16 going to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you get to have way different conversations with that 16-year-old.
Yeah.
You go, to Cabo together and have a fun adventure when they're 16. Like these are just different experiences. So the best thing you can do is look for joy and creating joy in the season that you're in, because that'll just bring out your best parenting.
Yeah, I know, that's good. I mean, just having been in Belgium, seeing the world through my daughter's eyes too, where I'm like, I'm trying to figure out the train schedule, like, why are you asking me questions about this thing over here that I don't even know what it is, but it's like, that was the whole point of taking her, was to experience a new part of the world. I mean, she wanted chocolate. That was the main reason. But
great. Love that. Smart girl.
Yeah. But it was just like, okay, I can slow down and just enjoy this with her and make these memories and connect, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I think when I got married, I was really young. I was 18, 19, but I got married really young. And I remember picking out napkins, and do I put our initials on it or not? What font do we use? And I just feeling overwhelmed in these details that felt like, who's going to remember these things? Because I'm probably not. And she told me, if it's not fun, then let's just move on. And we went to Europe together, her and I was an adult at the time, but I remember we were trying to figure out the train station forever, and we were lost and we were spending all this time. And then I just started cracking up laughing because I thought about my wedding when we were planning. And I said, Mom, are you having fun? She goes, no. I said, then we probably should just stop. So then we got out of the subway area or whatever we were doing, the train station, and we just went to a cafe. And I just thought, I'm so glad that we're still practicing that as mom and daughter adults, because that's what it's about. It's like, okay, let's have fun. We're in Paris. Okay, we're going to have way too much bread and a great cappuccino and figure out the train station in a minute.
Yeah, no, I like the having fun piece. You mentioned that in your book a lot. And it's like, yeah, we all want to have more fun anyway. So let's try to lean back on that as well. Well, I want to respect your time, and I probably know the answer, but if there was one thing that you could leave with us, one nugget, you have so many nuggets of advice, but if there was one thing, what would it be?
Well, I named my book this on purpose, which is, it's connection over perfection. So every time that we are fighting that need to perfect something, or we are just living in shame because we did it wrong and we're just worried about the damage, the quickest way that I know to restore something is to get back to connection. And we say that disconnection is the biggest problem that ever happened in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And so running back to connection is what's going to make you feel like a successful parent. It's what's going to bring that joy back. It's going to give us just so much more wind to our sails when we feel connected. Connection really is the goal, and run back to it, whatever season of parenting you're in, because you will not regret. No one regrets prioritizing connection with their kids.
Yeah. And it can be scary, but do it anyway.
Absolutely. It usually is slightly scary, especially if you've got a mess to clean up first to get there.
For sure. Where can my audience find you?
I'm very active on Instagram. So Brittney Serpell, Loving on Purpose. You just have to spell my name right. As I tell people this joke, think of Britney Spears, but add an extra T, because I'll always have an extra t-shirt on compared to
I love that. Yeah.
So Brittney Serpell or Loving on Purpose, you'll probably be able to find me that way. You can go to lovingonpurpose.com or imperfectparenting.co. If you go there and order the book, you get a little free mini parenting course right now, or you can order on Amazon. But I did the audiobook myself. So if you want to hear my voice, I cry throughout the book. So it's fun to read and cry and get back into it. That was a new one for me. Yeah. And then we do family coaching. So I coach parents, married couples, individuals, and you'll find that on the Loving on Purpose website. Yeah,
I've definitely taken a few of your courses and they're all great. So thank you for putting them out into the world.
Well, thank you for doing them.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for today as well.
Yes, had lots of fun.
If our conversation touched upon areas that you've been looking for support on, I encourage you to check out everything Brittney offers on her website, imperfectparenting.co. or grab her book, Imperfect Parenting. Links to both of those can be found in the show notes. As always, I thank you for joining us today. If you're enjoying PG-ish, find me on Instagram at PG-ish Parenting, and please subscribe and leave a comment or review on Apple Podcasts so that more parents can grow alongside their kiddos like you. See you next time, my friend.